Pretty interesting, huh? Very entertaining. How long do you think the immigration control will take?
1 hour.
1 hour? This is not the American dream that we're telling me about. Hello! The first guest of my apartment.
It's so beautiful.
Okay, can you show the apartment because I look absolutely ridiculous. The bathroom. This is what we have. This is what we're working with. This is the kitchen. This is what we have. This is what we're working with.
So have you met your roommate or no?
No. And this is my room. It kind of started unpacking already because I have a lot of shit. This is a bad mirror. I don't like it actually.
This is giving dorm mirror.
No, I know. This is really bad. But this is my closet.
The closet?
Yes. And here is gonna be my computer. And my computer is at Delphine's because it was staying in New York City for the past.
Your computer, your ice skates, and if your helmet if you want it.
Hi guys. I've never talked in English in my vlogs, but I decided to make a move-in vlog. I have moved into the apartment that I'm currently living in for this semester, and I know that it has been a little bit hectic so far, and it probably will be because this January seems to be very, very busy. So basically, when I just moved in yesterday, my friend came over and she is staying at my apartment for the next 3 days because now that I have an apartment, obviously I'm inviting so many people to come over and stay with me because it's a free space. When I lived in the dorms from my university, I was never allowed to invite anyone over, and also the beds were pretty small. The singles in the dorms of my university don't even feel like singles. They feel like half a single bed. So now I have a queen size bed, and obviously if the opportunity to see my friends presents itself, of course you're invited. So we already had a welcoming party to my house, like a what's it called? A housewarming party? Yeah, that's what we had. So I got this gift from Delphine for my house welcoming party because she brought me a flower, which is so nice. Thank you, Delphine. There's also a beautiful bouquet behind me that I probably will not be able to show because it's pretty big and I'm scared that my camera is gonna fall because I'm an influencer that doesn't have a C-stand for my camera. I don't have that. I probably should get one though, but yeah. I've been saying that for the past 2 years and I haven't gotten one. The day when I get that is gonna be a life changer for me for sure. But yeah, I want to apologize in advance because I know that this vlog is going to be a little bit hectic. The introduction of my apartment was already hectic because my friends came over the second I walked into the apartment. I was absolutely drained after my flight because it took me 2 days to get to the US. I met up with my friend Ahmad in the Doha airport because we got the same ticket for the same flight just because we thought that it's going to be fun to spend the 14 and a half hours together. So yeah, we thought that it's gonna be a fun flight, which it was. I was just really tired at that point because I already had a 6-hour flight before that and I looked absolutely horrible, but that's okay. I don't know why, but the jet lag this year has been hitting me so hard because I had to travel from the UK back home, from home to Turkey, from Turkey back home, and from home to Doha, and then here in the span of 3 weeks. I think that I spent around 80 hours of my life for the past 6 months on the plane. So I think that's something to consider when I'm thinking of why jet lag started hitting me. Also, a lot of stuff is coming in and the semester has already started, so I'm a little bit confused in time. I also have a delivery of my Amazon stuff that I purchased for the apartment, and my UPS storage is coming in tomorrow as well, which is going to be fun to unpack because I genuinely do not remember what's in those boxes. For whoever's watching this and they don't know what UPS is, it's basically a delivery company, but they also have storage spaces. So you can pay for a storage facility and your stuff is... My stuff was there for, I don't know, 10 months maybe? So because I'm an international student, it doesn't make sense for me to take all of the stuff that I have here in the US back home every time that I go home, or traveling in general for a specific amount of time. For example, for the summer, I didn't take any of my stuff. I have been paying for my storage facility for 10 months. I don't remember what's in those boxes for the life of me because I was moving out. May 4th, I think, was when the school year ended and I didn't have a lot of exams. So whatever I have to submit, it's usually not an exam. So I was done with school by May 4th, May 5th. So I just put my stuff in storage, went on a little trip, then went to get my visa and then went back home. And then after the summer, I went to London for 6 months. And so finally I came back here and I'm finally getting those boxes, and I have not seen them for 10 months. I remember several specific items that I put in there, but I just don't remember what clothes is in there. I don't remember what's in those boxes. I don't even remember how many of them there are, which is probably not a good thing. They could just tell me that I had one and I would totally believe that, but I don't think that I had one. I think I have 2 boxes in there, so that's gonna be fun to unpack. So the past 2 days that Mara has been in my apartment, we have been sleeping on the sheets and the one pillow that she brought from her house, because I specifically asked her, I was like, Mara, I don't have anything to sleep on, because UPS is gonna come with my stuff 3 days after I move into my apartment, which is exactly the amount of time that Mara is staying with me. So I was begging her, thank you so much, I was begging her to bring some stuff that we can sleep on. So we have 1 blanket, 1 pillow, and just a cover. So that's a little funny because I feel homeless in my own home, but that's all right. That's gonna change soon. And then the Amazon stuff is coming in with my new sheets, and the UPS storage definitely has some sheets and pillows that I put in. So that's gonna be exciting to unpack, to finally sleep like a queen in my queen size bed. Other than that, my school has started. I have been attending classes. There's not really a lot to say about that. But yeah, it's just, gotta do what you gotta do. I can't say that I'm really excited. Currently at Trader Joe's, choosing all of the If you ever come to America, go to Trader Joe's and buy these. This is the best thing in the world. These storage boxes delivered to me, and I opened one of them because I have to do my laundry right now. Sheets. Woo! Jackpot. I need to clean them. I'm not even worrying about the clothes right now. I don't have anything to wear, but that's all right, because first of all, I have nothing to sleep on today, and that is the biggest issue that I'm having right now. I got these pink sheets. I just realized that before I can make my bed, I have to open this package, so I thought that I'm just gonna do the whole thing. So I already opened this one because I had some of the sheets, my new sheets, come in, and I needed to wash them before my cleaners would close, because now I'm one of them. I'm one of these girls that have to go to the cleaners before they close, like in Sex and the City. I didn't know that that's how it works. I thought it was just the movie stuff, because I didn't really have to think about doing my laundry outside of school or outside of my apartment at home. That was never really a question for me, so I was just like, oh. So I went downstairs to ask the guy what time they're closing, and then I actually made a friend because he's running the cleaners and he was helping me out, and then we just chatted the whole time I was doing my laundry, basically. On a not so friendly note, when I moved into my apartment, I was looking around and I was like, oh, all of this stuff is just like the pictures, I was looking at my room, I love everything about it. But then I go into the kitchen and I see that a lot of the stuff that I saw in the pictures when I was about to sublet the apartment and I was signing the lease, basically, I saw that a lot of the stuff was just not there. And I was like, wait, this stuff is missing, this stuff is missing. Then I decided that I don't really care because I'm gonna figure it out later, because I needed to get some food. So I got a lot of groceries. That was the first thing I did. And I didn't really think about the kitchen stuff because I just assumed that everything is gonna be there. And then I come back home, I unload everything that I just got. I was so excited. And I look around, I open all of the cabinets and I just see that there's absolutely nothing in them. And I'm like, fucking wait a minute. Are you joking? So I look around and there's no plates, no glasses, no chairs. So the table where I'm supposed to eat my fucking breakfast and dinner and lunch, sometimes I don't really eat lunch, it's just somewhere on the side. Like I have to put it together for me to use it. Like you have to have equipment to put this table together, but I was like, okay, whatever. And then I discovered that the chairs were also taken from me because that's the thing, I'm not living alone in this apartment. So I basically have a roommate. I've never met her. I'm subletting this apartment from the girl who is a grad student, and her roommate, who is not here right now, but she's gonna come back at some point. She's also a grad student that I've never met, and I don't know who she is, but she has a room on the other side of the apartment. So I'm not here alone. I just have like a shared apartment with someone who I just talked over on the phone, which is a scary concept if you ask me, but that's okay. She goes to my school. I don't really know her. I just found this apartment on Facebook and I was like, yeah, let's roll with it. So when I was moving in, I just assumed that all of this stuff is gonna be here because I'm subletting the apartment. I'm not getting a new one. I'm not signing the lease for a full-on year or more. Subletting and signing a lease is very different, But I walk in, I just start looking around, opening the cabinets, and I see that there's nothing. There's nothing in them. I look around, there's no plates, no glasses, no nothing for me to cook with or eat from. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's weird. I got myself a coffee machine, and then I got myself some glasses and plates, which we're gonna be unpacking right now. That was a long story for me to just start unpacking. But yeah, the guy at the cleaners was really nice to me, and he was hyping me up, and he was like, yeah, you're cool. I was like, thank you. Okay, those are the glasses, I think. I'm assuming. So I have 4 straws for the 4 glasses that I got for myself. Also the important part of the story is that obviously I didn't know what the apartment looked like, so I was just looking around. And then I discovered that all of the stuff that was missing from the kitchen that I saw in the pictures, the table, and the chairs were in my roommate's room. Which I'm not really sure what that one is about, but okay. So I got my own glasses for myself and my friends. Because I also got a coffee machine, and now I'm just going to be drinking coffee by myself. I think this is cute. Okay. I actually love these. I'm very excited because let me tell you one thing. I've been living here for 4 days. My friend who was staying with me, who I invited to stay with me as soon as I move in, not only did she have to bring the pillows and all the sheets for us to sleep on, and we had to share one pillow and one blanket, like one little blanket for the past 4 days. We also had no glasses, anything to drink from, anything to eat from. So that was a really interesting experience. I felt homeless in my own home. Okay, I think this one is the air mattress. Well, my face wash, which is really important. These are the plates. Oh my god, they're so small. Oh my god, they're so small. Okay, well, that looks like a kid's meal. Oh my god. And they're all different colors. Like, this looks like I'm making food for a child. You know, when I was ordering these, my friend said, oh, you should really look at the sizes. Are you sure that you need this size? And I was like, yeah, I don't, I don't make that much food. I didn't mean this small. Okay. This is definitely 100% the air mattress, which is the whole reason why I went so deep into the story time that I wanted to give for the past 3 days. But the thing is, I had a lot of friends over, and I had a lot of people to see, and I also started school, so I didn't really have time for any of that. It's been my dream for a while to film a video of me moving in somewhere, which honestly half of my channel is me moving in somewhere, moving out or going somewhere, and I love that. But I haven't had a permanent place for myself, and not that I have this apartment to myself the whole time, but my roommate is going to be out for, I would say, 2 months. I think she's coming back in March or something. I don't know what she's doing. Don't ask me. I don't know where she is. So not that I have this apartment all to myself, but kind of for a while. Okay, there it is. It's time to make a bed. I just wanted to start with the bathroom. It's a beautiful space. I love that there's a window in the back because then every time I'm taking a shower in the morning, which honestly is rare, still, every time I take a shower, I can see the reflection of the daylight. I don't know, I really like it. And it's the only place in the whole apartment where the floors are not squeaky. So that's a plus. That's always a plus because my whole apartment is squeaky. Now we're in my kitchen. Welcome. It's also on the sunny side, so it's really nice. The view is pretty good. And I got myself a coffee machine, which was pretty much the only thing that was missing for me to be comfortable cooking around here and living in this apartment. When I was showing my oven, I don't have any issues with it so far, but I was showing my oven to my grandma and my stove. She said the funniest thing. She was like, oh my god, I had the same one in 1975. It's like, yeah. This one was probably made the same year. Doesn't look that great. I try to clean it up. I try to clean it every single time after I cook, but it still looks really rusty. Oh, and the thing with the roommate, I'm still eating standing up. Just like this. Other than that, great kitchen. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Okay, and I can finally show you my room. My friend just got me these books for my birthday. It's my late birthday gift. It's something that I really wanted for such a long time. Anyway, so I wanted to show you my room during nighttime because I think that that's the best lighting for my room. I also really want to change the light bulbs over here so the whole room is going to be a specific LED color. Oh, actually, let me clear that. Not the LED lights from 2020. I want the lights that make the room more vibey, but not the LED lights from 2020, not those. Because it's not like I need that much light during nighttime, so I would much rather have the orange lights in this room. But I moved some of the furniture around as soon as I moved in, so I have the mirror right in front of my bed, which I think is really nice. I always have makeup all over the carpet because I always do my makeup in front of the mirror. I think the room looks really nice. Since I'm living here for only one semester, I'm not sure if I want to spend that much money on everything that I would want to buy for this apartment, but it's honestly fine. I just think that I'm gonna buy some candles and change the lighting, and that's gonna be it for now. I look, did spend a lot on moving in and just all of the furniture and all of the stuff that I needed to buy, but this is the final product for now. If I have any updates, I'm gonna show you in the next videos, but thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for waiting for me to come back on my channel, and welcome to the new semester of my life, living alone, kind of, before my roommate comes back. But I love you guys. Thank you so much. Mwah.